here. And I'm also going to invite to the stage Camille, Elisabeth, and Marit. And now it is we're switching the spotlight to you as our guests. You can ask the questions. So just raise your hand. I'm going to ask you your name and where you come from. And these mics are a bit, you have to keep them here on your chin, otherwise people can't hear you. So you two get to share this one. I'll turn it on. And you two get to share this one. Voila. Okay, we have a question here at the bar. This will be my exercise of the day.
Thank you. Hello? Okay? Yeah, thank you for coming all the way to the back. I'm a seconded national expert in the European AI office, now working for the European Commission, as you so described. A really interesting job. I've just been there for 3 months. But my question is kind of like, how do we work to prepare for good governance of these different acts? Because I guess the signal from Brussels, during these regulations, the processes are quite challenging themselves. But then it also comes to kind of like, for example, in order to create kind of good governance of the AI Act, and of artificial intelligence and our approach to that. I know there have been some reports, but could you also tell a little bit more about the work with this in the coming years? Because the AI Act is happening now as we speak. We are working on it, but I'm really curious to hear about the governance aspect of this side of the collaboration.
Yes. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
You can hear me? Very good. Thank you for the question. It's very relevant, of course, and as you say, governance structures as well is one of the topics, of course, that is very relevant for us to comment on in our position papers. I think also what shows, because we have a good and have had this close relationship working with the EU side in the past on like kind of really important legislation like the Artificial Intelligence Act, obviously, it's very complex, it's horizontal, it affects all different sectors. And as you say, how this then will actually be set up and governed as well. What we see is that we have experience of also getting into some of the institutions that the Commission establishes prior to us even taking the Act into the EEA agreement. I mean, this is all, of course, a bit based on goodwill, and we see that we have mutual interest because this is going to affect the whole internal market, so all 30 states. And I think with the AI Act, we have seen that concretely as well with the AI board, for instance, and the work that is going on there and under there. And it's, of course, very relevant not only to have a say perhaps on the governance of the AI Act as such, but also to prepare our national bodies that will have a role in enforcing the regulation going forward. So, yeah.
Any other questions? Are you really making me work for my money here? Right in the back and in the corner. Just state your name and where you're joining from.
Thank you so much for coming and talking here. My name is Alfred Willem. I'm an intern at Innovation Norway here in Brussels. And my question is on the security aspect of the policy and with my extension also EFTA. And I talked about how in terms of trade, there's a focus on security. And I was wondering, for example, in the context of the Dragon report that came out last week, and the focus that is also on competitiveness, do you think there's going to be a conflict between the security interests and also the competitiveness within the EU and EFTA by extension?
Maybe, Camille, could you take the first part, and then maybe Marit, you could comment on the second part?
Yeah, thanks so much for the question. I don't know if you hear me at the you're okay. Yeah. Okay, so I think that indeed, in terms, there will be going to be a bit of a conflict, as you point out, in between the security aspect and the competitiveness aspect. But this is exactly what the European Commission is also trying to address with this economic security strategy, right? To kind of boost the EU's own champions by the kind of promote pillar of its strategy, while at the same time partnering up with third countries and on the protect side, the security aspect. I think what we see and what we can say is that currently there has been a lot of focus on the protect pillar of this strategy. It's especially been true with the new initiatives that have been put forward. I think another area of conflict which we are going to see as well is the fact that when it comes to security, member states are also very worried of what they can see would be a bit of a power overreach from the European Commission. So I think your question is hitting like kind of the kind of complex dynamics that we are going to see in the next Commission for sure, and perhaps more on the EFTA. That's thanks for you.
Yes, thank you very much for a good and very relevant question. For sure, these acts when they have security aspects as well, this is something that we have to consider carefully when incorporating. I think for us in the Secretariat and also for our capitals, there are two things that we see. One thing is, of course, if the security aspect is inside or outside the agreement itself. Whether it's outside, that needs to be a separate discussion than if as I mentioned a bit in my intervention earlier, if our member states really wants to join that path. So that is a discussion that has to be done in capitals. Another part of it is also what Trond touched upon a bit here as well. In some areas, we are allowed to participate early because we have been involved before, they see that it is useful, and not to mention this legislation will eventually be EEA legislation for all 30 countries. Having said that, when we are late, of course, we have experienced to a greater extent that the EU side is more reluctant to let us in before we have actually incorporated in the legislation. So these are two aspects that we see from our daily work. I don't know, Elizabeth, if you have something more to say on this?
Maybe just to say in general that I echo what Marit has been saying here before, and this is the challenge that we are facing now, to be frank as well. We see that the legislation is becoming more complex. It touches upon many different areas, but then we need to just assess sort of holistically how are we addressing and assessing legislation that comes our way. Are we looking at it holistically, or are we just sort of narrowing it down? And what our member states have been emphasizing now is that we need to take into account the bigger picture here. And we need to think about also that now security is becoming so closely intertwined with competitiveness as well. Because one aspect of security can be quite multifaceted as well. It can be on defense needs, for instance, but then it can also be relating to economic affairs as well. So then, of course, the internal market steps in there as well. So this is a reality that we are very well aware of, and I think I can agree also with what Camille is saying here, that there will be some conflicts, but I think it's also a conflict that we need to overcome and find the solution towards, because without it, Europe needs to sort of go ahead in a way.
Thank you. We had another question here in back, and then let me make my way back to front. I have time for maybe two more questions. Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. My name is Hannah. I come from the Confederation of Norwegian Enterprise. And I'm a little bit curious in light of the announcement yesterday where the EEA agreement and its fall as an issue in the portfolios. And second, how EEA and a mandate holders of the EEA agreement and by extension can sort of ensure its continued relevance of influence on the situation as a really experience coming up. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we were many people who can say something here.
Yeah, it's on.
Yeah, it's on. Thank you for the question. Yeah, I think we can just also say, like you, everything came out yesterday, so we haven't looked into this in details. But I think the framework of the agreement is what it is. We are very well aware of what it is. I think, and what we were discussing a bit earlier as well, I mean, we see the horizontal issues that go further and beyond the internal market. So I would say that there are not many portfolios of the coming commissioners that would not, in one way or the other, touch upon areas that are within the agreement. So this is definitely something that we have to look into. But yeah, they're in general what they do and the direction they are taking. We heard also the issues on trade. For sure, these are things that we, our member states, have to assess and think and look at the direction. But with the agreement, we have very close ties with the EU, and we will continue to have that. And what we like to say, if there is a will, there is a way. So I mean, it is all about our directions from capitals and probably a bit more work needed because we have to make it fit in one way or the other. But yeah, exciting times ahead, I would say.
Yeah, and perhaps just to complement on Marit's intervention, I think what we are going to see is that obviously Maros Šefčovič is going to keep, it's not EEA, but at least the relationship with Switzerland. Sorry, so he's going to still be the point person on that aspect. So I guess part of his broader portfolio is going to keep this kind of relationship as part of his brief. And then I think you had to...
Yeah, just to say that, of course, now when we looked at the mission letters yesterday, for instance, I deal with internal market policy, more horizontally, removing barriers, etc. But then also industrial policy. So for the working group that I am responsible for, what I noticed is that I opened at least 8 mission letters, which all sort of related to what my experts will be assessing back home. So I think this really sort of speaks truth into what reality we are facing right now. But maybe this is also sort of the reality that we also need to actually address and face and make sure that we are also grasping this type of horizontal approach rather than working in our silos. And I think this is a reality we are already starting to adapt to. For instance, when we are dealing with legislation like the Internal Market Emergency and Resilience Act, the Net Zero Industry Act, we are involving many different experts from several different ministries as well. So I think that our member states are also becoming quite used to working closer together and cooperating across the different line ministries. And you mentioned also regarding decision shaping and sort of the EEA agreement, the placement there. Maybe you want to chip in there.
Yeah, just to say again that since you mentioned decision shaping, I think what you also see in these mission letters that we have, yes, it's quite difficult sometimes, like same topics appear in different mission letters and responsibilities and all of this. It still needs to be walked up a bit, I guess. But what you also see is that you'd also see concrete titles of new legislative proposals, for instance. And here again, I think with the decision shaping part, it's really about thinking about this being early. And often you can also imagine we have perhaps had positions on something in the past, but perhaps now is the time to repeat those messages because we already have indications of what is coming up. So, yeah.
Okay, we're going to take one more question. You had already indicated to me, and then there is a breakout session with Trond and Elizabeth and Christoph from the advisory body. So go to that one in the afternoon, and there will be plenty of time for discussions.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mark Salter, visiting research fellow at ICS in Colombo, Sri Lanka, just next door. Currently in Brussels. I have a question which I think is probably best directed to Trond, but I may be wrong. So let's see. I'm very aware that along with all the things that have been discussed this morning, EEA and particularly Norway Fund do a lot of work supporting a whole range of projects and activities all over Europe, both in member states but even sometimes I think outside. Now obviously we don't want to add massively to the agenda, but I think that's quite important work and I think that you should talk about it. So I wonder, is there anybody on the panel who could do that? Thank you.
Actually, I can answer that one because the next presentation, who is eagerly waiting and has been waiting for some time just outside the door, is about exactly that. So we will pause this question, give you a whole presentation on it, but I'm going to allow this lady to bring her question instead.
Okay, thank you. I'll be quick then. First of all, thank you for so interesting interventions, and it's really challenging times ahead. So, linking back to the Draghi report briefly, it's difficult to look into the crystal ball these days, but how do you see those debates on financing going forward?
No.
I can see them.
I think this is going to be the big challenge that we have ahead of us. And of course now they will conclude on the next EU budget, hopefully in spring or summer, and then we will hopefully see the proposals for the next EU programs, etc. Von der Leyen already says that she hopes that this commission will be the investment commission, whatever that means. And I think that the member states, of course, that we will see the debates that we always see between the north and the south, etc. But now I think this will be a complicated picture that they will be drawing up. I know they will also try to merge some of the programs that we have. They want to create bigger programs, but they also want to simplify them. They want to chip in and be sort of open it up for common financing. So I think this will be quite a tricky negotiation that they have ahead of us. And I think maybe also, Camille, if you can reflect on this, like we're linking it now too, because you see, if you look at the responsibilities of the incoming commissioners, I think the budget portfolio, of course, it came to the policy commissioner, but then I think it will be in close cooperation also with Von der Leyen, so she seems to be also there linking in.
Yeah, exactly. I think what's going to be and this is actually what we see as well in Stéphane Séjourné's huge portfolio, is that he's going to be in charge of, obviously trade, interinstitutional relations, directly reporting to Von der Leyen, but obviously it's also part of like the capital market union and so on. So I think this is going to be a mega portfolio. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's the Portuguese nominee Albuquerque in charge of the finance portfolio. So, at the end, and we also have Valdis Dombrovskis, who's going to be a very stable presence in the Commission to be handling that. And I could not see really someone better suited that, Valdis Dombrovskis to kind of push this forward. But yeah, that's I wouldn't have so much to add, to be honest.
Thank you. I think we're going to have to pause. I'm going to give the gentleman here, our colleague from the External Action Service, just an opportunity to comment briefly, and then we will go on to the next speaker.
Thank you very much. My name is Krasimir Bukovov. It's just a small plea. I've been impressed that several of the presentations and also now in the panel have been referring to geopolitical dynamics and security. That is why I have a very small technical suggestion in your presentations. When you list your EU interlocutors, please include the External Action Service. Thank you.
Point taken. Thank you very much. Thank you to our panelists, and thank you for your questions.
Thank you.